Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us for our midweek Wednesday study in the Hebrew language, going through Ruth chapter 2. And as you can see on your screen, we're in verse 13. Again, just continuing with the relationship building between Ruth and Boaz, who will soon, become her again, we'll use the term kinsman redeemer, which you may have heard in many sermons through the years. And you find this relationship just building. And there is such beautiful poetic language in what Ruth and um, Boaz are going to be communicating with that we're going to just take a little bit of a pause per word here a little bit more and look at some of the beauty that we can find in the Hebrew language. So as you see on your screen, verse 13, Vatomer Emsan Chen. And Vatomer just means and she said. But then we get to the next word here is called Emsa Chen. You'll see a little marker here. This is called a Mekef in Hebrew, and it means that you should say these two words that they're connected by this little Mekef, and you would pronounce them like they were one word. So be um, Emsachen. Now, emsa is a very interesting word that if you've had any familiarity with Jewish culture, you'll see and have maybe heard the word matzah. And in fact, there's a matzah bread, matzah soup, and things like that. Um, I'm not sure that's spelled exactly the same way. It may be pronounced the same way, but here matzah means to find. And so what she's asking for is let me find, and then this word Shane, which we have unpacked before, it is the word that's normally translated as grace or favor. And it's one of the most beautiful words in the Hebrew language. I know we've talked about it in the past before. There are complete books written about this word chen and what it means and this favor, this grace that we attribute as finding in our relationship with God, but that is just a core basis of the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, if you will. Um, God's relationship with the Jewish people is based upon this chen or this grace and this favor. And so it's really encouraging to see it played out here because we don't always think of it as much because we spend a lot of time in the New Testament writings and we aren't as familiar with the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament. And so I'm more aware of that. And so let me find this grace and favor and necha in your sight. And then she uses a word that, again, being 21st century Westerners, when we see the word Adonai, or here is translated as my Lord with a small L rather than a large L. But even the word Adonai or my Lord, this is so very foreign to us. We don't use this kind of language, but yet trying to go back in our mindset and think about what was it like to be there? What did they feel? What was their culture like? It's worth taking a pause here and just realizing that the word Adoni here, Adonai, she's saying, my Lord. And you will find if you hear Hebrew being spoken that the word Adonai shows up many times in the Hebrew language, in the Hebrew Bible, and is spoken of by a person reading Hebrew quite often. And so we get sometimes a little room for confusion saying when we hear Adonai, okay, well, who are they talking about? And what's the significance of it? And isn't that a word just, reserved for a title for God? Um, in this time frame, it was not just the term reserved for God. It was used of anyone in authority, anyone who, so to speak, had the ability to govern in a person's life, make decisions in a person's life, influence a person's life in any way, was thought of as an Adonai, Adoni. And so I like gaining that little bit of extra insight, because when I hear the word being spoken of in the Hebrew language, um, it allows me to think of God in maybe a different way, to look at him, because, we get kind of hung up on these church words and the cliches that are used, and we toss around all these words that we don't really stop to think of the meaning so often. We hear them and we know they're religious words, and but yet to think of where they came from and what was the meaning at that time. And so to see Ruth's viewpoint here as she's speaking to Boaz, realizing, she is definitely receiving some special attention from him. She recognizes that he is very rich, very powerful. Um, he is, someone that, is definitely out of her sphere of lifestyle, because she's very poor right now. And so she's recognizing all these things, but yet it's in a respectful way. It's not in a way that shows that she's being sarcastic or meaning anything other than respect by it. And you'll see that as she begins to speak, she takes a very humble, very lowly position. Um, and of course, knowing her background, that she was a person of high status back in Moab. It was thought that she was maybe a princess, the daughter of a prince or king back then. For her to realize how much she has lost with the loss of her husband, and leaving her country, coming to Bethlehem, this has all been such a change for her, and this is just showing that she's embracing her new life. She's taking a very humble position and basically starting over. And so all of this plays into how this relationship will build. And so she calls him, my Lord, recognizing his position, and then uses a word that is very, very interesting, nicham tani, kind of circling it here. Um, in Hebrew, words have the ability to be uh, constructed in such a way in that you can understand the intensity in which the word is being spoken of, which again is very different than English. English, you would have to put like the word very, or some superlative on it to convey a meaning for the word. Was he speaking it in anger? Was he speaking it in jest? Was he just speaking it with no emotion whatsoever? A little harder to determine that in English. In Hebrew, there are different verb conjugations that exist that can create a tense or a meaning, a mood behind it. And one of the most intensive words that they have is called a PL form. And you'll notice that underneath it gives the verb uh, understanding, the verb conjugation, and calls this a PL. Well, how do you get an intense form of what she's experiencing? She's using the word that you've comforted me, but this, we say the word, oh, you comforted me. We think of kind of soft, kind of, lackadaisical. We get just, whatever thoughts go through your mind when you hear the word to be comforted. We don't think of it as an intense form of being very emotional. And that's where this is very interesting, because she's saying it in a very emotional way. So it begs that we have to go and look this word up and see, what it means in the Hebrew lexicon, maybe where it was used previously in the Bible, to compare and just try to get an understanding of what she's saying, what feelings are going through her heart. And we come across this word nacham, which means to be sorry or to console oneself. And I find so interesting that the first time this word is used in the Bible is in Genesis chapter 5, verse 29, speaking about Noah going to give rest and talking about the flood, which was obviously a very intense time of the Lord going to flood the earth and destroy all life upon it except for Noah and his family. And here the Lord even uses this word in Genesis 6. chapter 6, verse 6, to describe how he felt. And the King James says that he uses the word repented, which again, that's a challenging word to apply in the case of ascribing to the Lord. In our understanding, repentance is something that we do, where we say that we're sorry, we say that we're changing our mind. Does God really do that? Well, here in the Hebrew, we get to see that he's consoling himself, that he is having a heart um, reflection and looking deeply in his heart over a mourning, a consoling of what he's about to do. Okay, well, let's take that and apply it to what Ruth is feeling here in how she is looking at Boaz and having those same types of feelings in a very intense form. So it shows that she is very, very grateful, that her heart is just filled with gratitude and with appreciation for what Boaz is doing. And to just say that you comforted me doesn't at all do the word justice for how she is feeling. And of course, Boaz is sensing this. He's hearing her emotion. He's hearing her. She's probably got tears in her eyes and using a voice that's just very filled with emotion. Um, in expressing her appreciation. And then it even gets even deeper. And as we follow in this verse, he and like, this is the conjunction vav and the interjection kaf with the hirik, meaning and like you have spoken. And then she uses the word devar, which is there are two basic words in Hebrew that are used to describe the words that are spoken. One is amar and one is devar. Devar are words spoken from the heart. They are very emotional words. They are words like, think of someone who's speaking on their deathbed and they're saying things with their last breath and they're in kind of hushed tones and everyone's listening because they know that these are words that are um, not to be taken lightly. This is what's being spoken here, and the way she's receiving how he has spoken to her and realizing they are not just frivolous words, not just words of um, casualness, but they're words very deep. And it's also in a PL form. So here you have Boaz speaking words from his heart that are very deep. She is responding with emotions of gratitude and appreciation very deep. They're having we would say a heart-to-heart conversation. And then here even goes deeper. The next words are al lev, translated unfortunately as speaking kindly, but this word lev is really the word for heart. And so here she is acknowledging that these words are coming into her heart and to the inner man, to the will, to her mind, to her heart. Again, extremely deep conversation and saying that she's receiving these in her heart. Now she calls herself a maidservant. And then this second part of the verse is very has a lot of discrepancy on what she's really saying. It says, you've spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I'm not like one of your other servant girls. And to try to wrap our mind around that, is she saying she's like a servant girl? She's not like one of the servant girls? She's being treated better than the other servant girls? How is she comparing herself to the other servant girls who are working alongside her? And then how does Boaz see her? Does he see her like one of the servant girls or not like one of them? So in Bible Hub, there's something here called parallel. I'm not sure if I've shown you this before, but if you click on parallel, what it does is it takes you to all the other translations in English, and you can kind of set this up for any versions you want, but I have it set up to go through all of the other versions in English, and we can look at how do these other translations translate this. And so looking at this, it says, though I don't have the standing of one of your servants, even though I'm not like one of your workers, um, though I'm not one of your servants, although I'm not like one of your servant girls, though I be not like one of thy handmaidens. And then there's another one because they're basically saying, though I'm not like one of your servant girls. But you go down a little bit further, and they change it. And here in the Aramaic Bible, it says, though I be as one of your servant girls, and though I shall be as one of your servants from the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. So they're not quite sure. Are they comparing to her being like one of the servant girls or not like one of the servant girls? So let's take a look at the Hebrew commentary from the sage whose name is Samson Raphael Hirsch, and see what the Jewish commentators have to say about it. And so as we get to verse 13, he says, starting and recapping a little bit, that you have comforted me. He talks about the words from the heart, basically what we had just looked at a little bit. And then here he gives his interpretation. Now, he was a sage from the Middle Ages, so roughly around the 12th century, 1200 AD, obviously closer to the original speaker than what we were, so his words hold a little bit of weight. And so he interprets this as though as I'm not even worthy as one of your maidservants. So again, showing the heart of Ruth, humbling herself, saying that, okay, I'm in the field with all these other servant girls who I see how you treat them, you pay them, you take care of them, you're showing me favor. And even though I'm not worthy to be even at the level of these other servant girls and receive the, beneficence, the benefacting grace, the mercy that you show them as an employee, I don't even deserve that, but yet you're showing this to me. And so, again, here's another one, a different rabbi who gives the approach here that I thought was just very, very beautiful, and even listed as a different approach by this Mashal Umetz Liza. He says, thank you for your attempt to comfort me with promises of your reward, but it's unnecessary. I'm not like one of your servant girls who perform good deeds for the sake of reward. My intentions are only for l'shem shemayim, or for the sake or for the name of heaven. And again, just a beautiful picture of showing what appears to be the beautiful heart of Ruth here, that she's doing it for noble reasons, for reasons that are not to get gain, not to improve herself, but she is just humbly accepting what attention Boaz is giving her. It's humbly accepting the food, the grain, and so forth. And so it's just, again, a beautiful verse. And when we come back next time, we'll unpack even more on how this relationship even grows deeper than what we see here. So hope you enjoyed that. Hope it wasn't too deep or too kind of strange in the Hebrew language, but just to show you the beauty we have of with the tools. And it doesn't take a scholar, it doesn't take a Bible student to go through this, but we have these beautiful tools at our disposal, and we can just gain a deeper appreciation for what they felt, what they maybe believed, what they maybe understood during that time frame, and apply it to our understanding. So God bless you, and thanks again. Have yourself a wonderful week. Bye-bye.